The town that I live in has a very, very large university. I don't work at the university. I work at a liberal arts college that is a neighbor of the university. But that university has a very successful football team, and this year also a very successful basketball team, and that's a source of small talk. Just last night, I went to pick up some groceries, and the person who was ringing them up said, "Did you catch the basketball game?" And I had to bite back what I'm often tempted to say, because it's not very polite. What I'm tempted to say is, no, I have real meaningful things to fill my life. So I know people, and I think you probably do too, who have a sports team. It might be an entire team, or it might just be an individual athlete, and they know everything about the athlete. They know statistics, they know the athlete's biography, they know preferred strategies, playing style, and they are constantly, hungrily trying to gather more information, watching television, reading the sports page in the paper, getting information any way they can to fill this hunger to know more and more and more. One of the theories that I teach in a number of my classes has to do with why we communicate to try to reduce uncertainty. And there are 3 stages you can reach as you reduce your uncertainty about a person. There is descriptive, where you can explain what it is they're doing. There's predictive, where you can accurately predict what they're going to do next. And then there's explanatory, where you can say why they're doing it. And some people, they will pay such close attention and think so very hard about all the information surrounding someone who plays a sport, a game with concocted rules, where no one's life is made materially better by the outcome. They will consume so much information that they get to that explanatory stage, and they get some enjoyment out of it. They get some relief out of it. But really, it just seems to me like so much squandered effort, that sensation and that feeling of well-being, it's like taking a big mouthful of cotton candy. I mean, yes, you got a sweet sensation in your mouth, but the total nutritional value is absolutely zero. And there are people who go to that length, not for athletes, but for musicians. There are people who do something similar for actors, or maybe for directors. There are people who are that obsessive with their hobbies. I have known foodies who will go to the end of the earth to find the right ingredients so they can make a particular dish. There are people who are that way about video games. And I'm sure that there are a lot of other human experiences where people, in pursuit of enjoyment and in pursuit of a sense of well-being and escape, they will pile up enough information to fill a library, and then it seems to me like they just don't have a lot to show for it. Even people I know who follow politics, very often they don't follow the issues. They don't follow the problems that need solving and the proposals that might make people's lives better. Instead, they are junkies for the horse race. They want to know about poll numbers. They want to know who's up, who's down, who cleverly cut off a vote. They want to think of politics as a wrestling match, and really, it might as well be a TV show. And so, when I get to thinking about entertainment, I think if we were to spend that much thought, if we were to direct that much attention to our civic lives, imagine how much better we could make our communities, our neighborhoods, if we could harness all of that brain power, all of those eyeballs, all of that dedication and motivation, if we could treat that as a resource, if we could all get that enthusiastic about making our shared life better, how much better off would we all be? And I have to say, I don't want to come across as smug. I don't want to come across as one of those people who brags that he gave up his television a long time ago, although, to be honest, I did. I haven't had a working TV in my house since 1996, 21 years ago, so I guess I just did get smug about it. But the thing is, I have the same attitude toward happiness. My attitude about happiness parallels the advice I would give your typical high schooler about popularity, which goes something like this. If you walk in to any environment, any group of people, and your explicit objective, what guides your decision making is that you want to be popular, you're just going to shove it away from yourself. You're just going to repel people. The more you try to be popular, the more you will try too hard. But the more you walk into any environment, any group of people, and you're comfortable with who you are, and you're attentive to other people, and you're interested in other people, and then you just wait. Show up every day, comfortable in your own skin, be who you are unapologetically, and then pay attention to others and serve them when you get an opportunity. What will happen in the long term? You'll find that you're liked. You might not be liked by everybody, but being liked by everybody is overrated. People who see who you really are and who will value you for who you really are, if you're not trying too hard, if you're not desperate to be liked, and if you're interested in others as well, you'll find that you have satisfying relationships. Now, what does all that have to do with happiness? I think if you set out every day trying to maximize your own pleasure, trying to maximize your own state of well-being, it's like going out trying to be popular. When happiness is your objective, and when you make decisions to try to maximize pleasure, happiness, entertainment, when you try to escape, you push that sense of well-being further and further away. And the philosophy that I have been working on, which is not original with me, I have no idea who it's original with, it probably goes back millennia, is to do things that are meaningful, to do things that make a difference, and to pour my effort into that. And then I will find that happiness and a sense of well-being and a sense even of excitement and entertainment will be a byproduct. And I also have to say, I'm well past middle age. I'm almost 50 years old. And for a number of years now, probably for the better part of a decade, I really do not have any patience with fiction. When I read books, they're chiefly nonfiction books. When I sit down to watch a film, I am 10 times as likely to watch a documentary as I am to watch something that someone wrote and someone else acted in. And I think it's because what I want to present to myself things that are the most meaningful. And entertainment can be meaningful, but entertainment is only going to be meaningful in part because it is tuned to be a departure from the world as we find it to try to make it more pleasurable. And I find that's doing less and less for me. Here's what I think. I think that someone living in the United States in 2017 has almost unlimited opportunities to be entertained. And I think those unlimited opportunities, that's actually very, very unhealthy. I mean, plainly, I think a lot of people don't eat nutritious or sustainable food because we have choices. And among the choices, we have too many choices. And among those choices, some of the ones that are the most profitable, the ones that are freely available, and that the mass of people will choose more often than not, is something that is distilled to maximize flavor and pleasure. I think that a lot of us don't consume media that are meaningful because flavor and pleasure is more profitable. And when it is more profitable, it will be made more available. It will be more widespread. The organizations, the businesses that are selling either food or messages, they're going to go where the dollars are. And that, by the way, I think is another facet of the problem. Because I think that media organizations, radio stations, TV stations, and even film studios, you go back in their history and there was a time when what they stated were among their goals. They wanted to create powerful art. They wanted to be responsible contributing members of a community. They wanted to make everyone safer, healthier, and less ignorant. And today, it really seems to be that there is a purer and purer motive to become wealthy. to turn their opportunity and their market into more and more dollars. And it seems as though the belief is, if I become the wealthiest I possibly can be, then that somehow is a score. Then that somehow is going to give me satisfaction. And that, I think, that at least gives me some room to feel a little compassion for them, because from everything I know from people who have become that wealthy, you find that that hole inside of you, that hole of not feeling satisfied, of never feeling like you're enough, wealth doesn't fill it either. I also, it seems like I look around and I think that people get some kind of pleasure. It's an ersatz pleasure. It's kind of a counterfeit pleasure or a fake pleasure from being insiders. That repeating cliches and consuming this kind of entertainment, it gives us the phrases that we can repeat to one another, and also that we can bond around mocking people who deserve mockery. It's been a few years since Honey Boo Boo went off the air, but I remember just these almost choreographed expressions of outrage and contempt over Honey Boo Boo and her entire family. And people got a positive joy over grinding their teeth about how low and contemptible and awful Honey Boo Boo and her family were. Just the past week, I came across a video clip that apparently is making the rounds with a young lady who is saying, "Catch me outside, how about dat?" And that, in context, is supposed to have some kind of meaning, and we're all supposed to be outraged and horrified by what a state she finds herself in. And so I have to here step back about one step and say, when it comes to being an insider and repeating a cliche and belonging to the group, I think I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes, but I went on a mission trip last summer of 2016, with a number of the students that I teach, and the number of times that I heard them carry on entire conversations consisting of nothing but repeating jokes that their favorite comedians had told, repeating scenes from their favorite films, and I mean nothing but. Now, I think it's been the case for a very long time that people will work excerpts from their favorite literature or their favorite whatever it is that they do in their free time, whatever they do for enjoyment, that becomes part of conversation. But, maybe I'm just getting old and grumpy and telling kids to get off my lawn, but really some days it feels as though what we used to do is we might mention a song lyric, we might mention a scene from a movie, and then we would talk about it, and then we would talk about what we liked, and we might even think, what if it had been different? What if this had happened instead? What if there were a different actor? This song is like this song over here, and there was discussion of it. And now it seems as though what you do is you just recite those words. And I know this is something that I come back to again and again and again, but Sherry Turkle, the professor of psychology at MIT, who talks about a generation is coming of age who have had so many of their early communication experiences, formative communication experiences, where you first develop a lens through which you see the world. Those formative experiences have been through digital devices where you have a lot of control, where imperfection is punished, and perfection, because you can see perfection up close in stunning clarity, perfection is what is rewarded. So, if you can just repeat back the lines of a stand-up comic, if you can just repeat back the lines written by a screenwriter, and a screenwriter who may have won multiple Academy Awards, if instead of singing in your own voice, you sing and you're auto-tuned and you do 500 takes and keep the only perfect one, and every one of your photos is photoshopped, then what you don't do is you don't struggle and you're never authentically you. It is important that you maximize your perfection. And the sad thing about that, it's the same thing, I think, as the drive when it comes to food. The drive toward maximizing sensation, maximizing flavor, paying absolutely no attention to nutritional value. And I think that drive to perfection and the tools that are giving us the appearance that we can get closer and closer and closer to perfection, the problem with that is we put aside what's meaningful. that perfection becomes an end in itself, and we get within inches and fractions of an inch and fractions of a centimeter of perfect, and it's still not enough. I think that we do a lot of this. I think we do it to escape. And I think we do it to escape primarily from pressure. And I think that pressure manifests itself as fear, and I think that pressure comes from a lot of different directions. Down at the bedrock, at the foundation, I think that where we are in 2017 and have been for several decades now, that the marketplace has changed a lot. That what it means to have a career, what it means to what you do with your adult life, the meaningful work that you do is changing. How it works, what the unwritten rules are, what you can expect, all of those are changing. Not little subtle changes, not tweaks, but radical changes. And social institutions have changed a lot. So someone who was born in, say, my parents' lifetime finds this a very, very different world from the world in which they came of age. Even I find it pretty startling from day to day just how much things have changed. And that dislocation can, for a whole lot of people, produce a whole lot of anxiety. And here I will mention that a big constituency that supported Donald Trump, just because I'm proud of myself, I got more than halfway through without mentioning Donald Trump at all, but a big constituency who supported him were people who used to have manufacturing jobs, and those manufacturing jobs have been drying out. And Trump has promised he can bring them back. And a lot of other people are skeptical and say those jobs aren't ever coming back. And I'm not going to weigh in on that controversy, but I will mention that a lot of people were born into a world, thought there was a contract, thought there was an understanding that they could enter into the marketplace in this particular way, only to find that it vanished. It went away, and it left them blindsided, and it left them really without resources and without options, and every year the problem got a little bit worse. And the people they turned to for solutions would give them some empty reassurance, but nothing ever seemed to get better. So that, as I was saying before, is what I think is down at the foundation of people's anxiety. Then there come leaders in civic life, and people from both political wings use fear as a primary tactic. People who are on my end of the political spectrum, if it's useful to talk about a spectrum, we use fear to try to police insensitive language and exclusionary attitudes. Those aren't teachable moments. Those are the kinds of things that get you fired and shunned. There was, in the part of the country that I'm in right now, recently a controversy in a small town not too far from me where a vice principal had a text message conversation with a work colleague where they made some jokes about a student, and the student had been making complaints about the leadership of the school. Someone took pictures of the vice principal's phone and was able to circulate to the community those jokes. Now, I'm here to tell you, every place in the United States and probably every place in the world, if you are a school administrator, it's a stressful job. Some days you find it really hard to deal with the people around you. And so when you think you are not out in public, you make some jokes, and some of those jokes may not be entirely respectful. Well, this vice principal lost his job over it. And those are the fear appeals that people on my end of the political spectrum use, and we use them way too much. And there's very often not the sense there needs to be that we can take this seriously, and we can take constructive steps, and we can have some conversations that make things better. But we don't always need to attack, and we don't always need to ruin careers over these issues. But because that's what we resort to so quickly, one of the things that Donald Trump took to the White House was him saying that people were tired of political correctness, because political correctness is not about, hey, here's another perspective, let's meet together and learn from one another. It became about policing. Now, that's my end of the political spectrum. At the other end, the use of fear as a tactic, it is so irrational for people to live in fear day to day that they are going to be the targets of a terrorist attack. You might as well become an agoraphobe and never leave the house because you're terrified you're going to get struck by lightning. you're probably more likely to get struck by lightning than you are in just about the entire United States to be the target of a terrorist attack. But another thing that I teach, cultivation theory, what you see on television looks to us like a magic window that shows what's going on in the world, that makes our eyes more powerful and makes us able to see further distances. Well, that may be true, but the people who are creating the programming, producing the programming, they're creating it for a profit. And so they are going to try to create programs that draw attention. And those programs are going to be frightening. And so they're going to give lots of coverage to terrorist attacks. And then people wind up with a magnified assessment of the risk that they'll fall prey. So there's general anxiety about the way the world is changing. There are specific fear appeals coming from the leadership, and it shouldn't be surprising then that people turn to entertainment to escape. Entertainment is escape. Entertainment gives us a sense of control. It gives us a sense of control for a few reasons. First of all, because it is chosen. Things you do for entertainment, if you don't like them, just don't continue them. There's no commitment. If you go and you buy a ticket to go see a movie and the movie is really awful and a waste of your time, walk out. You have the freedom to do it. And I think so many other situations that give us anxiety, there's no escape from. A career you go into that you realize too late is not the right career, it's very, very hard to get out of. A world that seems frightening because of the way the marketplace works and because of what the news programs on TV are telling you, I've heard people describe it as a nightmare that you can't wake up from. In other words, there's no walking out. But entertainment, you choose to be there, it's controllable, you can leave if you want. It is also under the frame of play. Entertainment is play, and it's therefore not serious. And what I was saying before about entertainment can be meaningful, but only in part. That which is nonfiction, that which is documentary, which is aimed at, this is accurate, accurately portrayed and accurately explained. That commitment to accuracy is what makes it meaningful. What you do to make it into entertainment, and it's funny, reality TV shows are the least real thing of all. Everything that you do to adjust it is to put it under the frame of play, to make it imaginative, to make it appeal. And I think that we have a drive that has long since crossed over into unhealthy to turn to entertainment in order to escape. Partly, I kind of think that it might be about wealth. The thing that happens with every form of entertainment we have here in the United States, and in much of the rest of the world too, but I think it is especially pronounced in the United States, is that all of our forms of entertainment get taken over by affluence. All of them. Film stars make an unbelievable amount of money. Athletes make an unbelievable amount of money. This is a disease of affluence. One of the things that I've heard just anecdotal accounts from people who live in other parts of the world but come to visit the United States, and they find it just absolutely remarkable that high school sports teams will play in these huge facilities that cost millions of dollars to build. And you travel to a lot of other parts of the world. You travel even to developed countries. South Korea is popping up in my mind from an anecdotal account that I heard, I think over the summer at some point. You go there, and you're not going to find that the high schools have big sports teams playing in brand new facilities. They love sports. But what they do is they play pickup games between classes. They go out and they find an open field and someone has a ball and they kick it around. And those are their sports. And because anybody can play, because it's normalized, because you're not expected to be a spectator, that's one of the things that drives more of them to be physically active. Nobody has taken gigantic buckets of money and dumped it into those sports, and college sports definitely are worse. Nobody has really made those obese with affluence. Nobody has pumped in so much value and so much wealth and so much motivation. And the fans of the sports are the ones who turn their motivation and excitement into willingness to put down money and to pay higher and higher and higher prices. And then the effect of all that money goes in, and it absolutely poisons the environment. I am so thankful that the tiny liberal arts college I teach at does not have a football team. because I have taught at colleges that had football teams. None of them any danger to win the national championship or anything, but some had fairly big football teams, and those are big business, and they bring with them pressure that corrupts the learning environment, that puts all kinds of nasty pressure on the campus culture, and all of it, these are just the symptoms, these are just the signs that escape is so important to us that we will take our disposable income, we will take whatever discretionary spending we can do, and we will funnel our money down the drain in order to get just a little slice more of the sense of well-being that we get from escape. And so, one more thing I should say here before I get off this subject. I don't want to go overboard. I know that there are parts of the world where there are other countries, there are other cultures where they actually are a little bit more overboard about their entertainment than we are. And years ago, I read a book called You Gotta Have Wa, and it was about professional baseball in Japan and about how they escape from the pressure in their life by being fans of baseball teams. And some of the things they do about learning these choreographed songs and choreographed cheering routines, they make us look like we don't care about our entertainment at all. So it's not primarily, or it's not entirely, a United States phenomenon. It's a relationship and a dynamic that I think you could find in a lot of different areas of the world. So, I guess some of the last things that I have to say about this, there's a model that I teach in my field about what happens when people use fear appeals, and it's called the Extended Parallel Process Model. It's the work of a professor by the name of Kim Whitty. And when there is a fear appeal, but you feel as though there's something constructive you can do about it, then what you do is you resort to danger control. You do constructive things to try to make yourself safer. But if the fear appeal is too sharp, and if you feel like there's just nothing you can do about it, then what you resort to is fear control. And fear control often consists of changing how you see the world. It consists of reinterpreting the world. And I guess I worry that part of this running to escapism, that what we're seeing is fear control. And it's a symptom of fear control that sits alongside some of the symptoms of fear control that I've talked about in previous episodes, about changing what we accept as truth, or even accepting that something may be accurate and still trying to shut it out in the backfire effect that Brendan Nyhan researches and has such interesting findings about. I think that fear control also explains people who are seeing the world as who am I loyal to and who is not loyal to me, who is in my tribe and who is not in my tribe. I think that's another manifestation of fear control. And if I could think of a way, if I could think of a message to get out there, just a change that would get some people back to being engaged in their communities, it would be to try to convey that, yeah, the world can be scary, that problems can be big and daunting, that the world can be dangerous, but little steps taken repeatedly, and in particular taking the risk to form bonds, to step out, speak spontaneously, not perfectly, not with perfect polish, but to make friendships with people who see the world differently, to somehow make our way back to cohesive neighborhoods where we had some face-to-face conversation, to where we had some experiences to draw upon of conversations where we didn't understand and it was okay. Conversations where we were sloppy and clumsy and said the wrong word, but the other person laughed instead of getting angry. If we had some of that, to where we felt like we could chip away at some of these problems a little bit at a time, and we didn't feel quite so helpless, then I think quite possibly we could get out of the current state we're in, where it seems like either we run back to our filter bubbles and our little tiny communities, and there's a future episode for you, and all this motivation and effort that we could devote to solving problems, we dump into escape instead.